Welcome to the Write the Damn Book Already podcast. My name is Elizabeth Lyons. I'm a 5-time author, and I teach people how to write and publish powerful, thought-provoking nonfiction and memoir without overthinking or getting caught up in extreme overwhelm. Because your story and message matter, and it's about to become someone's very favorite resource. For more book writing, publishing, and how the heck do I move through this glitch tips and solutions, and plenty of free resources, visit publishaprofitablebook.com. Okay, everybody, welcome back or welcome in if this is your first time listening. So today, it's kind of a solo, well, it's not kind of, it is a solo episode, and I want to talk about motivation. And the reason I want to talk about motivation is that when you join my Facebook group, which is also titled, not surprisingly, Write the Damn Book Already, I ask a couple of different questions just to get a sense of, where people are. And the first question I ask, I think there are 2 or 3 at this point, it's not meant to keep you there, it's not a survey, is what are you looking for in this group? How can we best help you? The 3 most common answers that I receive to that question are motivation, inspiration, and accountability. Now, accountability, I can 100% help with. I mean, it's easy to understand what people mean when they say accountability, and it's easy to provide a solution for that. When it comes to motivation and inspiration, a little bit different, because those are really much like writer's block. And if you've heard me talk about my feelings on writer's block, you've probably heard me say, I don't believe in writer's block, which is where a lot of people's jaws drop to the ground. And I just need them to hang on a second until I get to the part where I say, I very much believe in the feeling that we label writer's block. I just don't believe that the block is actually the thing that is holding us back. In much the same way, I don't believe that it's a lack of motivation or inspiration that holds us back. And so in this episode, I'm going to talk about what I actually think it is and what some of my solutions are for it. My personal solutions, which hopefully will work for you. And they're also solutions that I've gleaned from clients and talking with other authors about what motivates them, what they do when they get into that messy middle, those stuck points, those I can't get started, I can't keep going, the book's going in a drawer, we're done with this. Before I launch into that, I just want to say really quickly that on April 18th, it is a Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we are having our next pop-up workshop within the Publish a Profitable Book community. Pop-up workshops are something that I am endeavoring to do once a month with various experts and other authors in the community who have done big things and can really help lend expertise to other aspiring authors and also established authors, just in terms of giving some new tips and tricks and strategies and ways to think about this whole book writing thing. And on April 18th, I am extremely excited because the workshop guest is my friend Sam Garcia. Sam is the founder of Dirty Alchemy Marketing. And if you listened to, I believe it was 1 or 2 podcasts ago, she was my guest and she talked all about ads for authors. She is a consummate Facebook and Instagram or Meta ads expert. She's worked with many authors and she had a lot of incredible tips for how you can get started simply on a simple budget without throwing your laptop out the window, without having to go into the rabbit hole of all of the functionality that the ads platform offers you. Just how can you get in there in a way that feels not like you're going to throw your laptop out the window? At the pop-up workshop on April 18th, the title of the workshop is How Authors Can Use Email Marketing for Long-Term Book Sales and Business Growth. During the workshop, she is going to cover 4 things. Number 1, the not-so-secret strategy of multi-million-dollar online businesses. Secondly, a basic, easy-to-implement funnel for authors. Third, copywriting tips for relationship building and sales conversions. And finally, creative ways to build your email list without it feeling like a major chore. The pop-up workshop, as all workshops are, is you have complimentary access if you are a Book Writing Made Simple member or you are or have ever been a book writing accelerator client. In other words, you've worked with me privately or in a group for the 12-week accelerator program. You all have complimentary access. So if you're listening to this and you haven't gotten the email, you can message me on Instagram at Elizabeth Lyons Author, or you can email me, elizabeth@elizabethlyons.com, and just say, I'm in for the pop-up workshop, and I will put you on the list. If you are not enrolled in either of those programs, you can still attend. There's a $25 fee, and you can sign up right through the link in my Instagram bio in order to get access. If you cannot attend live, I will absolutely be sending a replay of the event out. So if email marketing is something you are doing, considering, and I'm going to highly recommend both if you're an author, I highly encourage you to be there. Sam is an absolute, to say she's a wealth of information is an understatement. It's a deep, deep rabbit hole, but she does a great job of keeping things simple and not overwhelming. Like, she's great at following the principle, let's just start simple and get fancy later, as my good friend Jen Hansen DePaula always says, and I echo it because it's such a great way to do things. So I hope I will see you there on April 18th. Now, let's talk about motivation. When people say, I'm here in this group or I'm joining this program because I'm looking for motivation, and this is true, by the way, even if you are a business owner who isn't writing a book. So this, I believe, can be applied to all manner of things that aren't necessarily book writing, but I'm going to talk about it in the area of book writing. That is just a word that you are throwing out there, and I do it too, to essentially say, I don't really know, I don't have a firm grasp on what I'm doing yet, like what I want to say in this book. And so the default, and I know we don't love this word, but let's put air quotes around it. Excuse that I'm going to use is, I need more motivation. We do the exact same thing when we say inspiration. Those words are used very interchangeably. If you sit around waiting for inspiration to strike, in most cases, or waiting for the muse, as some people say, in most cases, you will be waiting for a long, 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 long time. In my own personal experience, and having worked with authors for a number of years and just talked to authors for a number of years and business owners, motivation and inspiration are sort of the byproduct of action. You've got to get into action in some way, shape, or form in order for the motivation and the inspiration to start to take hold. It's very easy, more air quotes, to say, well, yeah, I haven't started this thing yet, whatever it is, but let's go with a book because I'm waiting for motivation. Or I'm joining this group because I'm hoping people here can motivate me. Now, there's a difference between, are you looking for people to motivate you, or are you looking for people to hold you accountable? Because one is esoteric and one is actionable. So again, the accountability we can tackle. That is actually a simple and an easy thing to tackle. Motivation and inspiration, not so much. Where I find that there's a big gap for people is not that they aren't finding the motivation, it's that they don't know where to source it. I'm going to use an example from my own life from a few days ago. If you know me at all, you know you better like analogies or maybe be open to starting to like them because I use them all the time. I'm a very visual person. So if I can see it or I can imagine it in a visual way, I'm much more likely to understand it conceptually. I live in Phoenix, and we have gotten a lot of rain this winter. We even had hail once, but that's, global warming, it's very real. Because of that, the weed situation in my yard is completely out of control. I usually come in through the garage in the back, so I don't even notice. I don't have a driveway in the front, so I don't even really see my front yard. I went out about a week ago to take a walk and saw the front yard. It was a situation. I'm waiting for the homeowners association to send me a photo because they do that so well here. They shame us by sending us, they drive around and take pictures and then send us a photo and say, please fix this. But that's also another story for another day. I went out and I tried to pull the weeds and they weren't, my God, I can't keep a cactus alive, but these weeds are just thriving and their root systems are incredibly strong. I don't know why back in the day we didn't decide that weeds were the thing that were pretty and that we wanted to keep, and maybe flowers not so much, because I'd be an incredible gardener if that were the case. World renowned, perhaps even. So I went out and I got, the weed killer, and I sprayed almost the entire front yard. And then I waited 3 days. And after those 3 days, everything had died, but it didn't die and disappear. It now all needed to be pulled. I went outside and got started, and the first weed did not come up easily, and neither did the ones thereafter. But after pulling about 5, I stood back and looked at it and just thought, I don't think I'm ever going to finish this. Like, this is going to take weeks. I don't know, but I'm not even feeling like I'm making a dent in it. And all of a sudden, it started to become a metaphor for writing a book, because you've got to pull all these weeds, and you can imagine how we could align that to writing a book. You've got to figure out what you're writing about and create your outline, and then start, and then keep going. And then it feels like, oh my God, I clearly just wrote 9,000 words, but then you look at your word count, you really only wrote 24. And so on and on it goes. But what I decided in that moment in my front yard was, okay, I'm just going to pull about a foot worth, like 12 inches worth of weeds today. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. And then I'll come tomorrow and I'll do the same. And at some point, hopefully they won't start growing back before I've finished, but I'll get to the end of these 2 essentially rows that were separated by the sidewalk that goes up to my front door. So I pulled the first foot of weeds. Okay, fine. And then because I had done that, I started to feel some progress. Again, this is the action that leads to motivation. And so I kept going. And I never anticipated that I would actually pull half. My front yard is divided by a sidewalk, if you will, that comes up to the front door. I did the whole 1/2 in that session. I mean, it took a couple hours, and my back may never recover, but I did it. I've got to do the other side. But, I was amazed by how much and every time I'd say, okay, as soon as I finish this little area, I'm going to quit. But then finishing that area somehow gave me the motivation to just go, now I'm just going to finish this other area. And that's how it is for me with writing, or with anything, really. I just have to get into the doing of it. Lots of times we think we're waiting for a magic message or a magic insight or a new perspective or like something and we are, but we don't realize that we can conjure that up in ourselves. Another amazing thing that happened while I was pulling all these weeds is I got about 6 different ideas for content. This was one of them. I thought I could add this to my podcast on motivation. I also got a couple other things that are unrelated, but that came up for Instagram posts or emails I'm going to write to my list or whatever it was. So I just pull out my phone and tell Siri to send me a reminder and take care of that later when I feel motivated. No. Everybody is motivated by different things. And and I have a list that I'm going to give you of some of the things that I have found to be most motivating, or at least most likely to get me and other authors with whom I've spoken into action. Because that's where you're really trying to get into action. And that creates the momentum, the motivation, the inspiration, all the things. Sometimes it also creates the angst where you're like, oh my God, I'm not getting anywhere. And that's a completely separate conversation. Just know that everyone has those moments too. No one sits down and the book just pours out of them in 3 weeks. I don't care what anybody says. That does not happen for truly impactful, powerful, incredible books that people can't put down. And in fact, yesterday I met an incredible author who lives here in the Phoenix area. Her name's Neely Alexander, and her book, Love Buzz, it's a novel, comes out on May 2nd of 2023. She's with Harper Perennial. And I don't know if I'm allowed to announce this yet, but she has an event on May 12th at Changing Hands Bookstore, which is an incredible indie bookstore in Phoenix. And this morning, she asked me if I would host it. It's essentially going to be an In Conversation with Neely Alexander event where I have the absolute privilege of interviewing her about the book and her journey writing it and all these sorts of things. So I'm beyond excited. It's kind of like doing a podcast live, but it's not for my platform, it's for hers. I'm so excited. So if you're in the Phoenix area, please put it on your calendar and show up for Neely, because it's an absolutely amazing book. I'm going to devour it this weekend. I started perusing it last night. She's being compared to Emily Henry and Rebecca Searle. And that just put me over the edge. I mean, if my writing were ever compared to either one of them, I would be done. That would be enough. She's like, no pressure. But I said, that is absolutely incredible. Emily Giffen has endorsed the book. Allison Wynne Scotch has endorsed the book. So again, if you're local or you want to fly in, May 12th, 6 p.m., Changing Hands Bookstore in Phoenix. But what was interesting that I noticed is in talking with her, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast, but I'm working on my first novel. So my previous 6 books have all been nonfiction with memoir-ish, there's a lot of storytelling in them. But I'm working on my first novel. And so I was really interested to talk to her about her process, which she's coming on the podcast in April. We'll probably release it in May. So I'll ask her all about that. Be sure to come back and listen to that when it comes out. What I found is that as I was talking to her and listening to her about her process, I was getting, air quote, motivated to go home and get back to my novel. The novel has been tricky for me, and I haven't lied about it. I've been very transparent about that. I don't know if I've talked about it yet here on the podcast, but it's a completely different style of writing. And it was funny because Neely said that she would consider nonfiction to be incredibly difficult. For me, nonfiction, nothing's easy, but it feels comfortable. Fiction feels like I'm in a different swimming pool, and a much deeper one. But just having the conversation and hearing how she sort of gets to know her characters and her writing process and all of that, it lit something up in me to where I was driving home and I was starting to really think more and more about this and feel more motivated, inspired. And then you got to get home and get into action. So I actually got home and opened up the manuscript and reviewed where I was and tried to figure out, okay, where do we go from here? So some other tips that I give to writers when they're feeling like, I need motivation are the following. Number one, sometimes it's just a basic question that I ask. And that question is, what did you need to hear? Now, this is more for nonfiction or memoir, but what did you need to hear? Many times we are writing the book that didn't exist when we most needed it. So what was it that all of the Instagram posts and the YouTube and the podcast and the books you were reading, what was it that they weren't telling you that you needed someone to tell you? And sometimes when you can answer that question and just get into the energy of that, all of a sudden you're like, where's the pen? Or you open up your laptop because it just starts going, or you open up voice dictation and start recording, because then you're not thinking so much about what should I say? What does everybody want me to say? What will sound good to say? What will make me sound smart? What will make me sound like I need to be in or should be in this space? But what do I want to say? And when you open up space for that to come through, it kind of becomes, in many ways, a very open portal. Another suggestion I give people when they're looking for, again, air quote, motivation, is to workshop the chapter or the book. And what I mean by that is, again, now in this one, we're more talking nonfiction. If someone asked you to give a 60 to 90 minute presentation or workshop on a particular topic, so it can be the whole book or it can be a chapter idea, how would you do it? Because if you're giving a 60 to 90 minute workshop, you've got to have a beginning, middle, and end. And in a chapter, you've got to have a beginning, middle, and end. And so lots of times that process works really well for people because they can say, if I only had 60 minutes to present this, and they can keep it very high level that way, but they have a beginning, middle, and end, and they can build on that afterward. Lots of times, the most challenging aspect of writing nonfiction is figuring out how to start a chapter, how to end a chapter, and what the hell to put in between. And so workshopping it can be a very beneficial way to do that. If you are in the middle of your manuscript, and this could be for any genre, and you're feeling stuck, like you're not really sure what comes next, or you're not sure how you need to add more to a particular chapter, now you're building things out. You started with a skeleton, and now you're really building it out. Read it out loud as both the writer and the reader. So that would be 2 read-throughs. If you change your perspective from writer to reader, you will start to see holes that you didn't see as the writer. And again, that gets you into action. One of my favorite things to do to get myself into action is looking at other people's content. So this is where I actually advocate scrolling social media. Now, what you're looking at on social media is important. Like funny cat videos probably aren't going to get you there. But if you're looking at other content specifically that relates to your topic, it will start to, because you are outside your head, you're not thinking, what should I say? What should I say? What should I say? You've opened up that space to receive. And so as you are scrolling and you're reading it, all of a sudden you'll go, ooh, I want to talk about that too. And then that opens it up for you to go and take action. Read similar books or read, period. I have yet to meet or talk with a prolific writer or someone who's working on a book who is not an avid reader, or someone who wants to write a book who is not an avid reader of any genre. I just have not come across someone who said, yeah, I want to write a book. I never read. I hate reading, but I want to write a book. Those two things just don't seem to go together. So just read. There will be you could be writing nonfiction. And even if you read fiction, there might be a line, there might be something a character says, there might be a place where they are in the world that triggers something for you in a positive way, where you go, oh, there was that story I wanted to tell about that. Or, oh my gosh, the way she said that reminded me of that. I want to talk about that in my book. Now, this is going to sound obvious, but stop thinking about the book. There's a reason why we get our best ideas in the shower, while we're driving, while we're pulling weeds out of the front yard, while we're cooking, because our brain is not focused on what should I say in the book. And so that space, whatever it is, I need a neuroscientist to tell me, but that space in your brain is open. It's not full of what should. It's just open. And so the thoughts can actually come in. And that's why I have to have my phone or piece of paper near me at all times, because it'll be at the most inopportune moment, like when I'm pulling weeds. I get literally almost all of my content ideas or ideas for what I want to say or stories that I want to tell while I'm doing something that has nothing to do with thinking about writing at all. One interesting tip I got from Linda Sievertson, who is the author of an incredible book called Beautiful Writers. And I believe I hope, but it's she who at night, she asks sort of the universe, like, what am I'm paraphrasing her words, but what am I missing? What do I need to say? What do I want to say? What wants to come through me? Like, give me the thing. I'm open to receiving the thing. And then sometimes it comes in a dream, or it comes in a thought in the middle of the night, or you wake up at 3 a.m. with a thought, or whatever it is, but just putting it out there before you go to bed, because at night when you're sleeping, your mind is it's doing a lot of recalibration, but it's also resting. And so it's open. If you're writing nonfiction, you can ask a colleague to go over your outline with you, because then they can ask you questions that can help to elicit more thoughts on your part. Again, that get you into action. If you're writing nonfiction or memoir, ask a target reader what their main questions or concerns are about the topic. Sometimes we get so into our own heads, we forget it's other people who are going to ultimately read and benefit from this book. Many times we do know what our ideal reader is thinking, because our ideal reader was us a few years ago. But we're just one person with one brain. So if you've worked with a lot of clients on this, you can pull from what they've said to you for sure, but there are still other options out there. So you can ask other people who have battled anxiety, or trying to get healthy, or learning how to pull the weeds in the front yard before they're completely out of control. Like, what were their thoughts when they went out and saw all those weeds in the front yard? What were the limiting beliefs that they create? What are the objections? What was the resistance? What were they? And then what ultimately got them into action? Just to get more and more ideas, and ideas that will actually resonate with someone who's reading the book. Along those same lines, post on social media for feedback. Ask people, hey, when it comes to, I'm working with a great author right now, Alexandra Hill, who's writing about becoming an empty nester. And she does this brilliantly. She asks on her Facebook and her Instagram feed all the time, predominantly Instagram, what are your questions about this? How do you feel? Because you want to get it in your target reader's own words. That way, when they read it back later, especially on back cover copy or the Amazon description, and it says, this book is for you if that's in their own words, or it elicits a feeling, they're like, that's me, need the book now. This next one is one of my greatest action tips. Write in 10-minute bursts about one topic. Everyone really, this is almost true across the board, dismisses or underestimates how much you can write in 10 minutes. I did a book outlining workshop the other day, actually for Sam Garcia, who's going to be doing the email workshop on April 18th. I did it for her mastermind. And we gave everyone at the end 15 minutes to start working on their outline. And one person commented, I cannot believe how thorough my outline and just how much I got out in just 15 minutes. The idea that you've got to sit down for 3 hours every single time is nonsense. There are so many books out there that have been written 10 and 15 minutes at a time, most of them by overworked mothers who only have 10 to 15 minutes at a time in between naps and fits and all sorts of things to write. And they just sit down and they give it their 10 to 15 minutes and then they're back to whatever they were doing. And that's how the book comes together. The key is, in many cases, not to switch around topics in those 10 minutes. What often happens when we're first starting with a book is we write one sentence that we think is going to go with a specific topic or a specific chapter. And then in our head, we do the squirrel thing, like bright, shiny object, and we go to another chapter because in our brain, we feel like, I don't want to forget about that thing. This idea just came into my head. It has nothing to do with the current topic, but I don't want to forget it. So I'm going to go over to that chapter or I'm going to start that chapter. And then we get the 2 sentences down that popped into our head and that's all we've got. So then we kind of go, okay, now what? And then we get another. And so we're flipping all around, which there's nothing wrong for the record with writing a book out of order. If we're sitting down for just 10 minutes, however, and in those 10 minutes, we're on 10 different things, we're never going to go. A lot of times what we're doing is we're resisting going deeper into one thing. So and I don't like the word force, but to train yourself to just stick to one topic, one chapter, one thought, one concept for 10 minutes, you will be amazed by how much you can get written. And again, now you're in action. So then momentum, motivation, it comes back. For many people, getting into action is about writing the version that you cannot publish first. And I heard this posited brilliantly by Sari Botton, who is a memoir and essays writer. She's got a new book out, and I'm horrified that I can't think of what it is right now, but I will put it in the show notes. It is in my Amazon cart. I heard her on it. I'd never heard of her before, and I heard her on a podcast and immediately started following her everywhere because everything she was saying about writing was resonating with me. But sometimes you have to get the anger, frustration, perfectionism, whatever, out of you. When it's in your body, it's invisible. But when you get it out, you can start to really see it. You can see where you maybe need to think about it more deeply, maybe where you need some healing around it, where you need to get more clarity around it, and further, how you can start to really mold it. So give yourself permission to write the chapter or the whole book that you can't publish because you need to get some of those more volatile emotions out. You need to clean those up so that your book can be a little bit more powerful in the sense that it's the next version of you writing it. It's the version that's overcome and is maybe still overcoming, but don't be afraid to spend your 10 minutes getting that stuff down. Don't think, well, I can't get started. I'm waiting for motivation. And also, I'm waiting to figure all this out and know exactly how this all plays out and wait to be ready. I'm waiting to be ready. We're never ready. You will never be ready. We are never ready for most of the things that happen to us or that most of the opportunities that come our way. Sometimes, you find yourself in a situation where you're like, oh my God, I just got this opportunity, but can I really handle it? Am I ready for this? Well, you get to decide if you're willing to jump in, even if maybe you're not ready. Like, how can you best prepare? Again, another topic entirely, but so those are some of my top tips for how really to get into action. Because what you're looking for is not, in my opinion, motivation and inspiration. It's the how of getting into action and then building momentum, motivation, inspiration, whatever word you want to use, because everyone uses a different word. It's just that motivation and inspiration are the ones that I hear most frequently. And I absolutely understand what people are saying when they say, I have writer's block or I need motivation or inspiration. I absolutely understand the feeling that they're having when they say that. The solution to it is getting into action. And the way you get into action is by knowing what gives you the feeling of motivation that has you grabbing your phone, grabbing a pen, grabbing your laptop in order to start speaking it into existence and then being willing to continue to explore it and excavate it and hone it. I hope that has been helpful. Feel free, as always, to drop me a message. You can DM me on Instagram. You can email me. I would love to hear from you how you approach the sense of, I'm not motivated, I need motivation. How do you get into action? I would love to hear your tips. All right, talk to you all again soon. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, this is your friendly reminder to follow or subscribe, leave a quick review, and share it with someone you know has a great story or message, but isn't sure what to do next. Also, remember to check out publishaprofitablebook.com for book writing resources and tips, and to see all the ways we can work together to get your book out into the world. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk with you again soon.